Recorded.
Yes, I'm doing it right now. So,
and also the clothing closet. Alistair also covered the clothing closet, which is also located in Student Center, and will also be a donation site. So we have all of that listed for them. Okay.
correct. So you can go to University Career Services and find that. I will say we do have walk-in hours, Keisha, Tuesday and Thursday 2 to 4.
So it'll be in person from 2 to 4. And then we'll also have just virtual walk-in hours Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So you'll be able to definitely come virtually all week long. But if you do want to come in person to see me, please stop by on Tuesday and Thursday between 2 and 4, and I'll be here. All right.
Perfect. I will try to pop in walk-in hours if you need help with your handshake profile or just to get registered for the fair. I'm more than happy to help you. So I want to make sure there are no more questions. So go to the Student Center. I mean, not Student Center. Go to University Career Services. They just moved to 25 Park Place, which is right across the street from where we are. For you to be able to pick clothes if you don't have anything. You can come up here to take a professional headshot at our Iris booth. I think you can just drop in. You'll swipe in and then we'll get you set from there. No, we do not rent out suits. The clothing closet, I think you're able, once you pick those pieces, you can keep them. I don't think that you have to return those. We are working on being a donation site though. So, but you're going to go to University Career Services if you need clothing. All right. I think that was all the questions and it looks like everybody's good. So Winnie, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I don't know if you need to share your screen, let me know. And then I'll give you those questions.
I do, Marielle. Let me, I cannot share my screen currently. You can give me permissions, please.
All right, you should be set.
Okay, perfect. Cool. Okay, I have like a dual monitor situation, so I want to make sure I have the right screen being shared. Okay, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I see a lot of names that I recognize, and so it's great. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're taking your career seriously. Like, I know it's easy to be very focused on the day-to-day school assignments and projects and all of that, but super glad that you are forward looking. So we're going to jump into my presentation. I'm trying out something a little bit different. So hopefully it's fun and engaging, but let's get started. So hopefully this is, I'm assuming this is the dream that everyone has, that one, you've graduated from Georgia State University and you're walking in at your first day as a public accounting firm as a full-time employee. Like, that is the dream. Like, I don't think anyone is here in the accounting program taking classes because they're bored. Like, you have a goal to get a full-time job. But the question is, how do you get there, right? And how you get there is by knowing where you are today and making an appropriate plan. So today's presentation is all about understanding the timeline that recruiters are really working on and why it matters. And that there are a couple of things that go into it that are super important. So in my opinion, I think understanding your timeline is the most important part of being able to secure the right opportunity. So here's kind of the first general rule, and every firm's a little bit different. So I'm going to give you big generalities, but it's up to you to make sure that you understand if you're interested in a specific firm, does this rule apply to that firm? But generally speaking, most firms want you to start working full-time after you've completed the educational requirements for CPA licensure. And licensure is actually another key word here. I'm not talking about the requirements to sit for the CPA exam. I'm specifically talking about the requirements to be licensed. So later today, you'll hear from Tony Williams from UWorld Rogers CPA, who's going to go into more detail. But for purposes of this conversation, I do want to go in high level and just talk about what those main requirements are. So the first requirement is education, the second requirement is exam, and the third requirement is experience. So under education, you have to have a total of 150 credit hours, and that must include 30 hours of upper division accounting and 24 hours of general business. If you are a BBA student of any type at Georgia State, you will have a sufficient amount of business classes. But if you are just a BBA accounting student at Georgia State, you're not going to graduate with 30 hours of upper division accounting. Most of you will graduate with 21. You have to pass all 4 parts of the CPA exam with a 75 or higher. And then you have to complete 1 year, about 2,000 hours of work experience under a licensed and active CPA. So in terms of timing, which I've never talked about this before, you definitely want to complete your educational requirements before you start full-time. That is the general rule. For the exam, ideally you complete the exam before you start full-time, but many students complete the exam requirements while they are working professionals. And then the work experience usually happens your first year on the job. So I'm going to post a question to make sure that y'all are with me and paying attention. So of the 3 elements to become a CPA, which is the most important for landing the opportunity today? A, education, B, exam, or C, experience. So put your answers in the chat. Interesting. So I'm getting a lot of mixed answers. So for purposes of today, the most important thing for landing the opportunity is actually the education requirement. So the correct answer is A, right? You're going to get the experience after the fact. And so Matthew Foster is going to talk a lot about how to do well in the interviews. But for purposes of applying to the right job, knowing when you're going to be eligible for an internship or full-time or summer leadership, which we'll get into, understanding the educational requirements is the most important part. So for all of you that put A, education in the chat box, please give yourself a pat on the back. And then for everyone else, listen up and I'll go into more detail on that. So actually I have another question for you all. And so this will be interesting because we have a lot of master students on the call, but true or false? The double major in accounting and finance at Georgia State University will satisfy all the licensure requirements for the CPA exam. True or false? Put your answer in the chat. Nice, nice. I like what I'm seeing. The vast majority of you have said false. So double majoring in accounting and finance will not satisfy all the requirements for the CPA exam. So if that question comes as news to you, I would highly recommend that you go to your email. I know that I've emailed everyone multiple times this week and set up an appointment with me for us to talk about how you're going to get to 150, because you're not going to get it by double majoring in accounting and finance, generally speaking. So let's talk about some important terms before I jump into the timeline. I'm going a little fast, but we're doing good on time, so I'll slow down a bit. So the first term that I want you to know is what we usually in the School of Accountancy, around the college, and in the CAC refer to SLP, but SLP stands for Summer Leadership Program. And so if you're a freshman or a sophomore or even a junior on this call, pay attention because SLP could be really important for you. So a summer leadership program is usually a 1 to 2 to 3 day event where students learn more about a particular firm, network with other students and professionals, and engage in professional and personal development. Summer leadership opportunities usually take place in the early part of the summer, so May and June of a given year. The next term that I want to, important. So with summer leadership, some firms want you to apply to their SLP program first, and I'll go into this a little bit more, and then other firms want you to apply to their internship first. Ultimately, it's up to you to find out. So as we go through this presentation, if you realize that summer leadership is a good fit for you, this could be a really great question for you to have ready in your arsenal of questions to a particular firm. Hey, I see that you offer a summer leadership program. Do I need to apply to the SLP program first before being considered for an internship, or do I go to SLP after? I think that's a really great question to ask all the firms that you're interested in if you're SLP eligible, because it lets them know that you're interested in what they're doing. Okay, so the second term is internship. So an internship is usually an 8 to 12 week opportunity where you're working 40 hours a week, just like a first year staff or associate in a particular practice. So the main practices in public accounting are advisory, audit, and taxation, as well as accounting, depending on the firm. So then the other term I want you to be familiar with is full-time. So full-time is very similar to an internship in terms of the work that you're doing, but you are a full-time employee of the firm. receiving benefits, probably on a salary. You are a full-time employee, right? And then the other term I want people to know, because this comes up a lot, and I think we as staffers take it for granted, is the Big Four. So the Big Four are the four largest global public accounting firms, and that's Deloitte, EY, and KPMG. And the reason why I single out this particular group of firms is that they have a slightly different way, not a slightly different, but they recruit. They're the biggest firms you'll see recruiting on campus. And there's a great opportunity. I started my career at a Big Four firm, but sometimes what the Big Four do will be a little bit different than what some other firms do. So in some ways, it can be helpful to group the Big Four together from a recruiting timeline purpose. Okay. All right, so I have another question for you. And I'm emphasizing this because this is probably where I see a lot of students mess up in understanding their timeline. So the question is, how many hours of upper division accounting do you need to be licensed as a CPA in the state of Georgia? Awesome. Yes. You need 30 hours of upper division accounting to be licensed in the state of Georgia. I see the term 150. 150 is the total amount of hours that you need to have in order to be licensed. But the reason why I bring up the upper division accounting requirement is because if you're an undergraduate student, being an undergraduate student alone at Georgia State is not going to get you to the licensure requirements for the CPA. And that is what firms are looking at when they try to determine your timeline. Make sense? And if not, I have the chat up. So if there are questions that pop up, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them. But we're doing good on time. So I can take questions at the end. Okay, so let's get into the meat of it. So one thing that's super helpful, just kind of understand that depending on your timeline, a summer leadership program, SLP, an internship, and full-time opportunities generally will occur in different years. So if you are interested in an SLP, please don't embarrass yourself by then thinking that you're going to do an internship that same year. Generally, firms, the recruiting process in public accounting especially, is a long one, and they want to get to know you. In most other professions, people are searching for a job, usually 3 to 6 months before graduation. Accounting is very different. You're usually recruiting anywhere from 1.5 to 6 months in advance of when you're going to start. So just wanted to say that up front, that an SLP, internship, and full-time opportunities occur in different years, and I'll expand on that. And then for the majority of firms, and the majority, so this is not the Big Four, so the majority of firms outside the Big Four, an SLP will lead to an internship, and an internship will lead to full-time. Okay, so let me jump in. All right, so now that we have talked about the 150 requirement, now it's really, this is the part where we're going to get into your timeline. So if you are completing your 150-hour requirement in 2021, meaning you are graduating or have already graduated from Georgia State University and have the educational requirements to be licensed for 2020 in 2021, when you go to the career fair, you are looking for a full-time opportunity. So if there's anyone in here graduating this December, when you go to the career fair or the accounting, audit, advisory, and tax employer showcase on Friday, September 10th, you are highly targeting a full-time opportunity, right? Because you've met the 150, you're ready to start working full-time. Does that make sense? Okay. There's no way to know if it makes sense, but I'm assuming no questions in the chat means it doesn't make sense. It does make sense. Okay. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This is where like planning comes into play. So if you know that you will complete your 150 requirement in 2023 during the fall 21 accounting, audit, and advisory tax employer showcase, this fall you are looking for an internship. An internship for spring or summer of 22 should lead to a full-time opportunity in 2023. So let's say you do an internship. Let's say you're actually graduating with your BBA degree in accounting in spring of 22, and you only have studied accounting, so you have 120 hours. So you know that you still need to go back and get the 30 hours as well, 30 total hours, as well as additional upper division accounting hours. You're probably looking at graduate school, right? And so you would do your internship summer of 22 and then start graduate school in the fall of 22, graduate in August of 23, and then be ready for full time in the fall of 23. So if that is about your story, during the fall career fair, you are looking for an internship with the plan to go full time with that firm in 2023. Okay. Now, this is for the freshmen and the sophomores and the juniors on this call. So if you are completing your 150 requirement in 2024, you definitely want to target an SLP opportunity for summer of 22, so next summer, an internship for the following summer. So if you do a lot of different SLP programs, you can then from that, you'll be targeted for an internship. That internship can occur in the spring or summer 23 semester with the plans of you going full time in January 2024. So if you're on this call and SLP is what you're targeting right now, you are in great, great company, because I would highly encourage you to go to the career fair, go to the general sessions, see what firms you like, talk with the recruiter, ask them when they plan to post their summer leadership opportunities. Those opportunities usually get posted in early fall and then close in right in January. Okay. Okay, another thing, this came up in a session I did in the summer with the incoming graduate students. So internships are great. They really are. I did internships and they're awesome, but they're not a requirement for getting a full-time opportunity. So the reason I bring this up is that and I see a good conversation going on in the chat, that depending on your timeline and how quickly or slowly you will finish up your 150 requirement, which we've talked about, that includes 30 hours of upper division accounting, you may not be able to get an internship in. You also might be a student who has to work full-time or work a pretty robust job to support yourself. So leaving your current job to do an internship might not be something that you can do, but it's not a requirement for getting a full-time opportunity. What matters is that you are networking and you're actively engaging with the firms. So I did a lot of talking, and so I'm going to, in a way, I've put basically what the last 4 slides have said into a chart format. So if you're roughly, and don't take the hours are important, but if you are someone who has earned a lot of, you have extra credit hours from switching majors or transferring schools, you may be sitting on a lot of hours. But really what matters is when you're going to hit your 150 and then working your way backwards. So if you're in your 3rd year or about your junior year, I would say you would, generally speaking, target summer leadership for next summer 22. So that should lead to an internship in the spring or summer of 23. And then you should be ready to go full time at some point in 2024. If you are in your 4th year or a senior or roughly at 91 to 120 hours, and I'm talking about getting to the 150, you definitely want to target an internship for next year, so spring semester or summer semester, with the plans that you'll be going full time in 2023. And then if you're in your 5th year or a master's student or very close to completing your 150 in this year, then you would be looking for full time next year. Okay. So now what? So I've done a lot of talking. And so now what you want to do is figure out where you want to go and then follow the plan to get there. So if you are like I said already, but if you're summer leadership, you want to use the fall 21 semester to meet and network with firms and determine how they offer an SLP program. I know specifically that Deloitte and KPMG, their summer leadership program is a celebration event for their interns for 2023. So let's say you go to KPMG and you really like the firm, you're actually going to apply for your 2023 internship, and then you'll be invited to the 2022 summer leadership program. But firms like Smith & Howard, they will have their summer leadership opportunity in May of 2022. And from that group of summer leadership participants, they will identify students for internships for the next year. And then if your internship goes well in 2023, they will offer you a full-time position in 2024. So that's what to do if you are summer leadership is your destination. If internship is what you are looking for, this is really, really important. So if you are looking to secure an internship for either spring of 22 or summer of 22, the fall 21 semester is your final opportunity to secure an internship. So it's not after, basically after today, unless a firm just has, their business needs explode and they're like, wow, we need more interns than we have previously planned, or they're projecting more business than they planned. They are looking at all the universities that they recruit from, including Georgia State, for their interns. And so for most recruiters, and I can attest to this because many of my close friends are campus recruiters, they are looking to fill up all their any remaining internship opportunities that they need for 2022. They plan to have them all filled by this fall. So if you know that an internship is something that you want and you're eligible for one, this semester, this career fair is really your last opportunity to secure an internship. So what do you need to do? High level, make sure your resume is updated. And when I say update your resume, I really want your resume to reflect that you know how you're going to get your 150. So recruiters are pretty savvy. They're going to know that if you just have your BBA degree in accounting listed out, generally speaking, they're like, oh, does the student know how they're going to get to 150? Probably not. So make sure your resume is updated, but I'm specifically make sure that you have included your path to 150 on there. At this point, it's super important to know your service line interests. So tax, audit, and advisory are usually the three main service areas that an accounting firm has. If I could give you any tip, I would say if you're looking for an internship, just make your best educated guess on if you're interested in tax or audit or advisory. I would generally say if you liked accounting 4101 and 4102, audit's probably a good fit for you, right? Because you're auditing financial statements. If you really liked your tax course, then I would say obviously go into tax. And if you liked your systems class, then advisory is a good fit. Apply on Handshake. Marielle did such a great job covering Handshake. And so what you're going to see when you look for a job is that the employer may say, hey, drop your resume into Handshake, but then also go on to our website and apply there. So you may have to apply in two places to be considered for an internship, and then absolutely attend the September 10th career fair. Okay, so full-time. So fall 21 semester is your best opportunity to secure a 2022 full-time position. And so everything I said about securing an internship applies here as well. The one caveat with full-time is, so a firm might say, oh, we have a bigger busy season coming up. So every so often I see that Karen Martucci, she is the senior career coach for the accounting students. Karen or myself might, or even anyone in the CAC really might get an opportunity from an employer saying, hey, we've had a last minute need. Do you have any students that are still looking for full-time? That does happen. I wouldn't count on it. So your best opportunity to secure a full-time role will be right now this fall. So with that, have a successful recruiting season. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to review the chat. I know I've seen Natalie and Alistair and others did a great job of answering some questions. So someone had asked, if you do your BBA in accounting, does that fulfill the 30 upper division accounting classes? No. So if you are just a BBA accounting major, you are only going to graduate with 21 hours of upper division accounting. That will always be true, no matter what. Unless you do an internship and take the field studies class, you may graduate with 24. But if you're a pure BBA accounting student, you will only graduate with 21 hours of upper division accounting. That's enough to sit for the exam, but that is not enough for licensure. And then, yep, Natalie says, I'm happy to talk with anyone if you want to. And to Natalie's point, this presentation is very, very general. You may have some outstanding circumstances that I am not aware of. And so let's absolutely have a conversation and we can figure out a way to do that. If so, then another question was, if I graduate and fulfill 150 credit hour for CPA, should I look for internship or full-time at the career showcase? So if you are fulfilling your 150 at the end of this semester, so fall 2021, you're a better candidate for full-time. If you are fulfilling your 150 in 2022, then maybe an internship is right for you. But I would say let's meet and we can figure that out. And so then there was some conversation on graduation and all of that. And so, oh, is any of this different for international student? I think the only things for if you're a couple of things with the international student piece. So if you are an international student and that means you got your undergrad degree from outside the US, you may have more or less hours than what translates into a US degree. So we should definitely talk about that a little bit more. As an international student, the CPT was brought up. So you'll have to actually take a course with your internship if your visa only allows you to be in the US to study school. And then the other consideration I would put for international students is that be sure that when you are, and you can, one of the things I do like about Handshake is that you can look to see if the companies you're interested in do offer sponsorship. So if you really like a company, but they don't sponsor, you might need to look for another company that's willing to sponsor you. So another question in the chat, for a cohort MPA student graduating in December 22, yes, you should be looking for full-time in 2023. So for any new cohort MPA student on the call, I would encourage you to go to the career fair to just start networking with firms, going to the general group sessions and learning more about what they do and if that firm is a good fit for you. Getting to know employers, getting your name in front of them. But full-time recruit, so kind of like I said, I didn't really say this, but it's implied. So everything going on in 2021 is really focused on 2022 opportunities. So a lot of the recruiters that are on campus for fall 2021 are looking for SLP for 2022, internship for 2022, and full-time for 2022. So if you're looking for an opportunity further in the future, then I would say do not think that you should delay networking. I would say start networking now to get to know recruiters so you can be on their radar when they post their 2023 opportunities. Then there was a question on where do I get an internship? So Handshake is going to be a great place for that. Yeah, Marielle said it the best. Accounting Club, Beta Alpha Psi, NABA are hosting events with employers. The Career Advancement Center has hosted session with employers. So we can't mandate a lot of things in this world, but if I can mandate something, if you want an internship, you have to proactively hustle to get one. Where can you find summer leadership? So I'll do a quick plug for the accounting club. So summer leadership recruiting will kick into high gear at the end of this semester once we get past the fall 21 recruiting season. So on November 8th, I believe, we will have a summer leadership kickoff event. So there are like 15 firms offering summer leadership, and you can hear more about their programs at that event. Someone asked how to get their resume updated. We'll talk about that today, but I know that VMOC is a tool that you can use. The career fair is virtual this year. Lots of great questions. Cool. Yeah, and thanks for the kind words, Alistair. Yeah, I'm happy to sit down with any of you and plan. So what I will do is I will get out of all of this stuff and put my scheduling link in the chat. And so really, if you have this link, I would love for you to meet with me whenever I'm available. And I'm generally available Monday through Thursday, but here is my calendar link if you want to meet more and talk in person about your particular situation. I did not time my slides. Okay, I'm doing okay on time. Yeah, so any other burning questions before I kick it back to Marielle? Have I scared all of you away from being accountants? Okay, Michelle asked, are there any joining the accounting club? Does it include fees or it just is networking? No, so there are no fees to join the accounting club. There is a link, I'll put that in the chat as well. Just a quick survey to figure out who is in accounting club. But I can send Michelle, well, I'm not on, yeah, I can send it out again, or I can send it out to this group of people. But yeah, I'll put some accounting club information in the chat as well. But there's no fees to join, but there is a program, the Accounting All-Star Program, where we are going to track students who are all-stars and attending all the meetings, both accounting club, some Beta Alpha Psi things, some accounting club things, some CAC things. So if you have questions about the accounting club, perfect. Thanks, Grace. Awesome. Yeah, that's all that I have. Okay, I'm glad this was helpful. Grace is an awesome resource from PwC. I'm excited for you to hear from her. I am not available today, but use my scheduling link in the chat above for all my availability. Marielle?
Awesome. Thank you, Winnie. That was incredible information. I hope that you all got something from that. I know you did. Please use Winnie as a resource for this semester and to make sure that you are where you need to be. So quickly, is there somebody from NABA that's here to give us like a really brief overview and how students can get connected with you? That'd be awesome if you want to unmute yourself. I don't know if somebody from NABA is.
Hi, Mariel. Yes, this is Shanta.
Hey,
I'm
there
here.
you are. Hey, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me turn my camera around. Hi, everyone. I see some familiar names on here, but for those who don't know me, my name is Chantal Walters, and I serve as this year's NABA president. NABA, for those who aren't familiar, stands for National Association of Black Accountants, and we're one of the orgs here that basically promote business students. We do this by hosting like development workshops, we host many recruiters such as from PwC, EY, Deloitte, and even small and local firms like Myers and Stauffer. We also provide sponsorship both nationally and locally, and also we do firm events, as mentioned before. We are a great way for you to get connected with recruiters, as Winnie briefly mentioned before. For anyone who's interested, feel free to reach out to me. I'll leave my email in the chat. And you could also follow us on the PIN network, so to get more information on all the events we're hosting this semester. And I'll hand it over back to Mariel.
Thank you for that. Is somebody from BAP here to just give us a brief? Hey, Natalie, there you are. The floor is yours.
Hey, Marielle. Thank you. So hi, all. My name is Natalie Cooper, and I'm this year's president of Beta Alpha Psi. Beta Alpha Psi is an honorary organization for accounting, finance, and CIS students. Not a fraternity or a sorority, but an honors organization. And so we do some similar things that the accounting club and that NABA do. We have professional meetings with employers, big four, mid-size, smaller. We have everyone come on campus and talk with us. And we will be able to provide in-person opportunities for you to network with these employers this semester. There are dues associated with Beta Alpha Psi, and that's just because we're associated with the national organization. But you can find out more about us on Panther Involvement Network, and we'll be posting all of our events on there, and you can apply for membership there as well. We're hosting with NABA an information session later today from 4:30 to 5:30 in the joiner room, and then we'll also host some more. BAP will have another information session next week, but you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat as well, or come to one of our info sessions, and we'd be excited to meet you. I'll hand it back to Marielle.
Thank you, Natalie. We appreciate that. So you guys make sure you get involved with all of the various student organizations. It is really important. Employers do look for that on a resume. And speaking of resumes, well, actually, Winnie, do you want to talk about briefly accounting club. Sorry.
Yeah, I was like, hold on, what about us? Okay. So I'm going to share my screen again so you can see our meeting schedule, but all of this is available in Handshake. So we have a lot of professional meetings. So the big thing I'll say about Accounting Club is that everyone in some ways is, if you're an accounting major, you are already a part of Accounting Club. I put the link in the chat to join the All-Stars program, but even if you don't want to be in the All-Star program, we would love you to attend the meetings to get connected. So we have a public accounting networking social on Monday afternoon virtually. And so if you meet a firm, or if you just even want to practice what it's like to be in a virtual space with the recruiter, Monday night is a great time to attend. You don't have to be an all-star member. All of these events are available in Handshake already. So just type in Accounting Club and you'll find all of our meetings there. Thanks, Marielle.
Awesome. So I know a lot of you had questions about resumes and how can I stand out and what needs to be on my resume. Well, our friend from PwC, Grace Wood, is going to take over in the driving seat, and she's going to talk about Accounting Resume 101. So I'm going to hand it off to her. You're out. It's all yours, Grace.
Perfect. Can you guys hear me all right? Awesome. Well, hi everyone. Happy Friday. I think it's Friday. I moved last weekend, so I am like all sorts of out of sorts. But really happy to be here kicking off another school year with you guys and your amazing staff and faculty you have running programs like this for you. So wanted to talk to you about resume tips. I know it's a hot topic and there's kind of endless work you can do on your resume. So wanted to pass along just a few tips that are general to all resumes, but I will hit on some accounting specific pieces of it as well. But before I do that, just a quick introduction. So my name is Grace Wood. I am the Georgia State recruiter for PwC. I've been in this role, Georgia State specifically, for about a year, but I was on maternity leave for half of that. So still getting to know a lot of you. I do recognize some names here and excited to get to know the rest of you. I actually live in Chicago, so I'm not local to the area. I am a virtual recruiter. So I unfortunately will never come to campus, but I am still a recruiter. I will connect virtually, and then we have plenty of PwC staff in the area who will be in person when we return to campus in person. So let me actually share my screen and walk you through some resume tips and tricks. All right, I'm gonna make sure I get the chat open just so I can monitor that. Okay, feel free to unmute or put any questions in the chat as we go along as well. All right, can you guys see this? Hopefully.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, thank you. Just want a quick confirmation. Okay, so some quick facts about resumes, which I have found to be true. Only one interview is granted for every 200 resumes received by the average employer, which sounds daunting, but that's why you really have to do everything you can do to make your resume stand out. Your resume will be scanned rather than read in detail, at least at first. A lot of resumes are read in detail once you kind of get farther in the process, but the first impression of a resume of a person is so important. So like it says, it's 10 to 20 seconds to persuade a prospective employer to read further. So it's really a lot like the layout of your resume, and we'll talk about this, but how it looks and the first impression, if it's all crowded with a lot of text or if there's a lot of weird blank spaces, if it looks visually pleasing and professional at first glance, I'm going to want to spend more time looking through that resume and reading through the actual details of what's on there. So really important to get not just the content right, but the overall kind of flow of it and the format of it as well. So things to remember, it's a marketing tool. It's really used to obtain an interview, not a job, right? So it's, again, that first impression to get you in the door, and then you have the interview to get you the job. That's where you can really show your personality and talk about your experiences and get to know people, and obviously everything that happens in an interview. Use short, concise statements, especially at this entry level. you do not need to have a 4-page, CV with paragraphs explaining everything. You really want to keep it short and sweet, but relevant to the job you're applying for, which we'll talk about as well. Make sure you're using numbers, percentages, dollar amounts, anything to quantify the impact that you have had in the experiences that you're listing. Keep it easy to read, make it consistent formatting. Don't get too fancy. If you want to do some cool formatting, that's totally fine. Just make sure it's not too much. And from an accounting perspective, we're not applying for a digital marketing job or a graphic design job. So try to keep that in mind when you're creating your resume. Not to say you can't add a little personality and formatting to it if it's done in the right way, but don't feel like it has to be totally unique with pictures and borders and all of that. Simpler the better, especially, like I said, from that first impression kind of professional standpoint. The bottom one's obvious: never lie or twist the truth. Just stick to what you've done and be able to speak to that. So let's start at the top, literally. So this is your contact information. So always list that towards the top. If it's elsewhere, that's fine, but it's really easy for us if it's at the top and we can see your name very clearly. A lot of times I have to grab someone's email from their resume, so it helps if it's right there at the top. Use a professional email address, whether that's your school one. Something to keep in mind, and I'm not sure how it works at Georgia State, if your school email address is going to expire when you graduate, be sure to use something different. And also make sure it's not your email address from 7th grade. So it's not, b-ball girl 123. Make sure it's more of a professional personal email address if you're going to be using a personal one. And make sure it's one that you actually check. So a lot of times we have, the issue where students apply, or they mostly use their school email, but then they apply or correspond with us with a Yahoo email that they used 10 years ago, and then they forget to check it when they actually get communications from companies. So make sure it's a professionally named email that you will actually be checking. Another thing, just from a contact perspective, is to set up your voicemail. So something as a recruiter, there's nothing more frustrating than calling, and understandably, I'm the same way. A lot of people don't answer the phone. They wait for someone to leave a voicemail to see who it is. A lot of times that voicemail is not set up, or the greeting is not set up. So just take a few minutes to make sure that your voicemail is not full, it's set up, and you have a nice greeting on there as well to make sure that we know that we're reaching the right person. All right, so the education section, this should list your degrees at this point, likely just your undergrad, or if you eventually go for a master's or anything like that, should list those. Everything should be in reverse chronological order on your resume, including the education section. So, here you can see she graduated from Dartmouth in 2010. That's lower than Vanderbilt, which is in 2013. So the most recent experience, education should always be towards the top. This is important, and we touched on this a little earlier, your graduation date, and I beg you, all recruiters would beg you, please put your 150 hours on your resume and make sure it's very clear, because that's something that we spend a lot of time chasing down as recruiters, and because we want to make sure that you are pipelining into the correct position. So as Winnie was explaining, if I'm a 2021 grad, but I'm going to go an extra year to get my 150 and graduate in 2022, that affects when I intern, because we all work backwards from your CPA date, not your actual undergrad date. So if it's not on your resume, I'm going to reach out and say, hey, can you confirm if you're going to have your 150 by May 2023, or if that's going to be December or the next spring or anything like that. So really, really crucial to put that on there. I will say this doesn't even have to be this wordy as you see in this example. I would even just say Master of Accountancy, May 2013, and then, dash or something, CPA eligible, May 2014. Just pretty simple like that. It just tells us that's your CPA eligibility date when you'll be completely done and ready to deploy to the workforce. So I know that was a question a couple of times in the chat. Any explanation needed on that, or any questions on the 150? Okay. If you think of them, put them in the chat or come off mute. Obviously put your college, the city and state, your major and minor if applicable, and then your GPA, both your overall and your major, if applicable. So if it's not on there, we typically assume it's pretty low. So I would always include it. And just know too, from a recruiter's perspective, GPA isn't everything. We're really moving away from that being a main point of review. It's not like there's a cutoff, and if you're over it, you go this way, and if you're under it, you don't get looked at. We know that there's so much to a GPA that instead of just a number, there's a story behind. You know, I started college as an architecture major, so I was taking physics and things that I did not do well in. So there's always stories, especially with COVID happening and a lot of personal challenges the past couple of years. So don't be scared away from putting your GPA on your resume. I see a question. If I registered and scheduled for one CPA exam, should I include that on my resume? Absolutely. You don't have to. If you just put your date on there, we assume that you're going to pursue the exams. But if you already have something registered and scheduled, I think that's great to put that on there just to show that intent is really there. All right. So your experience, this is your work history, everything like that. We always recommend using the term experience instead of work history or employment, especially at this level of entry level, because, you know, you're not coming off of like 10 years of work experience after college. You're coming out of college where you had maybe a few internships or, you know, part-time jobs on campus. And so we want you to be able to list all of that. So like it says, full or part-time work, self-employment, volunteer work, co-ops, anything of that nature. If you're on like a junior board or something like that, that can all go into this experience here. And if you use that word experience, it kind of lets you pull all of that in, because again, we're not expecting you to have the perfect background for the job that you're applying to. We just want to see what experience do you have and how can you speak to that on how it would relate to the job that you're applying for and the, you know, the industry that you're looking at. Describe your experience in short, snappy phrases, starting with descriptive action verbs. So we'll talk about that quickly. Like I said before, quantify your results. We'll also talk about that. Prioritize your bullet points. So don't just kind of brain dump and then have 5 bullets. Make sure the most important one is the first bullet. And then, you know, from then on, especially in consideration of relevancy to the job that you're applying to. And I can't stress this enough, proofread a million times. I know you'll get sick of it. But typos, they stick out like a sore thumb if it's double spaces, if it's a typo, and it's not a good look, right? Because this should be something that's absolutely perfect. So proofread it, send it, you know, go through the resume review through the Career Center, send it to a mentor, send it to a friend, just have a lot of eyes on it. Okay, so this is what I was talking about with the action words. Every single bullet should start with an action verb, whether it's past tense or present tense. So accomplished XYZ or implemented a new program for XYZ. Make sure each section is consistent, whether it's past or present tense, and make sure you're not repeating the same verb a lot. So, you know, it's not manage this and manage that and manage this. Make sure you're using a lot of these different, and this is not a full list, a lot of these different action verbs. It's much better than saying, you know, bullet point says, I, you know, ended up helping blah, blah, blah. Like say, you know, make it really powerful and punchy. This is an example here. So something that's not very impactful, I process accounts payable. Okay, that doesn't tell me much. A lot of people do that. Something that would be more impactful would be I process over 100 invoices for payment each month. I reduce turnaround time from 17 days to 13 days. Being able to put impact on your resume is huge. And I can't stress enough how much that sets you apart from other people, because it shows that you're really thinking through that task that you did and the impact that it had and how it can relate to this job that you're applying for. Here's just a kind of more of this example resume. You'll see the experience includes a couple different things. So we have a college program that she helped with as an apprentice teacher. We have an accounting internship. We have an accounting assistant, which looks like it was maybe more part-time during the school year. Oops. And then another assistant job. So it can include a lot of different things. Don't think that it has to be just accounting internships or something like that. Again, we're interested in all of your experience, even if it's a summer job at the pool, lifeguarding, which I did in college. You know, as long as you can say, I took a leadership position by doing this, and just really speaking to that experience. It doesn't have to be what you think is the perfect experience. Your professional, so affiliations, activities, things like that, like the clubs that you heard about that you can join. You know, Natalie and Shantai can list that they are the president of NABA and BAP. Make sure you're listing those, talking about the leadership positions. If you're just a member, just list that you're a member. But I encourage you to take a more active role in those clubs so that you have, you know, things to expand upon on your resume and in interviews to really talk about how you're not just kind of checking the box and I'm a member, but I don't do anything. I just join a Zoom meeting once a month. Like, I actually contribute by doing X, Y, and Z. And then you spell out the name of your organization. So we're all really familiar with NABA and BAP and Alpha and all of those, but it's always helpful just in case someone's not familiar to make sure you spell that out for them. So here's some examples of professional affiliations. We have a, looks like a sorority or fraternity here, a programming board, a voting member. There's junior boards for nonprofits people are a part of, you know, things in your community over the summer. It just, anything really counts. But again, like I said, it all comes back to experience, and any experience is good experience. Some additional information you can include are specialized skills, softwares, training certifications, or licenses, especially in this day and age when technology is so important. You know, and maybe you don't have a tech minor or double major, but hey, I took, you know, 5 classes that were, you know, technology focused, or I got a certification over the summer. I you know, self-taught myself Alteryx or Tableau or something like that. So make sure you list any of that on your resume as well. Things like foreign languages, I can speak sign language, hobbies and interests. Don't feel like it, you know, you can't put any personality into this resume. We love to hear about, you know, travel that you've done, or I play piano, or I do calligraphy, which are my 2 hobbies. So it really helps kind of, you know, build up who you are as a person as well, because, you know, we're all people first, not just resume. So that helps to kind of, you know, show some of that as well. So you can see here some interest: tennis, hiking, running, cooking, knitting, language skills, computer skills. Those are all really helpful, especially the skills. We really scan that, you know, for some of our more specialized jobs in the technology consulting or something like that, where we're looking for coding languages that someone can execute on a computer. So just some examples there of skills. All right, so that was a lot of information. Questions? Does anyone want me to go back to a certain slide or expand upon any of this? We kind of worked our way down the resume. I'm gonna scroll back up here through the chat. Usman, I cannot talk after this, but I will put my email in the chat, and I also have a link to schedule time. If I went to a different college my first year, should I put my GPA? That's a personal choice. If you've had a couple years, or if you have enough classes at Georgia State to have a GPA, you can put that on there and not worry about your first one, or just put a note, something like GPA, like transfer student, you know, something like that. And it explains that you're kind of waiting to establish a GPA at Georgia State. I think Winnie answered the eligibility for the CPA exam. If you're changing careers and you do have years of work experience, do you lead with that, or is education more important to start with? That's a great question, Alistair. So I would say in your situation, if you wanted to put experience first, I think that could make sense. If you do have a couple years of work experience prior to going back to school and changing careers, it's not make or break if you put education first or after experience. That's a personal preference, and it might make more sense in your scenario. All right. Are there free online certifications I can get related to computer skills? Yeah, so I would check out Coursera is a really good online course library. PwC actually partners with them and has created a lot of content for Coursera. So check that out for a lot of content. And if you can just find YouTube videos or, you know, certifications that you can find online for Alteryx, for Tableau, for UiPath, those are all tools that are heavily used at PwC specifically. What certifications do you recommend for accounting students that are in junior and freshman years? Really, I say focus on what's interesting to you. You know, focus on your accounting curriculum, but then if there's a certification and some technology tool that interests you, you know, there's nothing specific I can say. It's just, again, adding to your experience. But the best thing you can do is do something because you're interested in it or because you want to learn that. Don't do it because you think you have to. It's just like during interviews, I said, don't ask a question because you think you should ask that question. Ask questions you want to know the answers to genuinely. So just kind of poke around and maybe talk to students that are older than you and see if they have any certifications, and don't feel like it's necessary either. But just kind of, it's up to you, really. Sitting for CPA exams but for Maine, do you encourage to include that info on the resume? Yes, that's actually very helpful to know what state you will be licensed in by the CPA. We need calligraphy. Oh, we'll have to talk about that. I love it. I've not done it as much since my daughter was born. Shocking, but need to get back into it. An experience in the resume, we should use present tense or past tense. So if you're not in the position anymore, you should use past tense. So managed, executed, implemented, XYZ should be past. But if it's a position that you're currently in, so say you're in the internship or you're in a part-time job throughout the school year, that should be present tense. So manage, you know, these things daily or something like that. Okay, I think I caught up on questions. I can't remember what time I was supposed to end here, so I hope I'm not over time or way under time. Any other questions for resume related or anything really? Awesome. All right, I'm gonna put my email in the chat and I hope to hear from some of you. Marielle, are you taking over?
Yep, I'm jumping
Okay.
back in.
Okay.
Thank you, Grace. That was amazing. I hope that you all were taking notes related to that. And speaking of resumes, if you need assistance, we have a system called VMock that will help you. It's available 24/7. You can utilize it. I've dropped it a couple of times in the chat. Let me know if I need to put it again in the chat. I'm more than happy to do that. It is free to Robinson students. It will definitely help you craft almost the most perfect resume. Okay. So we're going to take a little break because we just threw a lot of information at you. So maybe stretch, go get some water, and let's be back here. Let's say at 11:22. So let's take a little break. Thank you, Alistair, for dropping that in the chat for me. So let's take a little break. I'm going to pause the recording for a quick second. I'm also going to put on the screen the check-in. If you have not checked in today, just use your phone to do so. It's a QR code. And so let's be back here at 11:22. Enjoy your break. Okay, awesome. So this portion of Accounting Bootcamp, we're going to be talking about how to talk your way in the door. And so I'm about to let her drive. It's Abigail Moon from Grant Thornton, and she's actually going to be talking to us about interview tips and strategies for success. So Abigail, I don't know if you are on because I can't see everybody listed. So
I am here.
Oh, perfect. So it's all yours, and you should be able to share your screen if you need to.
Yes. We are still waiting on one of our professionals to join, but we will go ahead and get started. We have Veronica Caputo and Chip Goodrow here to present on interview tips and strategies for success.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Chip Goodrow. I'm a senior manager in the audit practice here in the Atlanta office of Grant Thornton. I've been with GT for just under 10 years. Prior to Grant Thornton, I was with RSM McGladrey and BDO, all here in Atlanta. I am excited to talk to you guys today. I've been recruiting at Georgia State for as long as I've been in public accounting. Excited to talk to you guys today about interview tips and strategies for success. Veronica, who's going to be joining us in just a minute, is a partner in our tax practice, and she'll be able to tell you a little bit more about herself when she gets here. I'll tell you that if you haven't been through it before, the interview process can be very intimidating. You're sitting across the table from someone who likely has a great deal more experience than you do in the field, and you're being asked to be insightful and conversant in something they know a lot about. So it can be a very daunting process, but part of the purpose of this session is to tell you that it doesn't have to be. We're going to talk through a couple of things here. Abigail, if you want to advance the slide, we can look at the agenda. We'll talk about things to think about before the interview and some steps that you can take in order to best prepare yourself to be interview ready. We'll talk about how to conduct yourself during the interview, steps to take to make sure that you're coming off as prepared, pressed, and ready for success. We'll talk about some steps to take after the interview, follow-up actions, making sure that you stay in the interviewer's mind as a candidate and a potential for whatever position you're interviewing for. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. I'll pause briefly to see if Veronica's joined us yet. No, doesn't sound like it. Okay. Abigail, why don't you go ahead and move the slide forward, and we can talk about before the interview research and reflection. Hey, Abigail, can you advance the slide, please?
Hi, sorry, I thought I did. On my end, it's like, let's try again.
Okay.
Is it good?
Yep, there we go.
Okay.
Yep. So before the interview, you've identified that this is a position that you want to apply for. You've identified that this is a firm that you might want to do work with. So you should be approaching this with the same level of diligence, at least the same level of diligence and discretion as you would, a holiday weekend, a vacation, a new significant, purchase or financial commitment, because it is a significant investment in yourself, right? So do some research on the firm. Like, easiest place to do that research is first and foremost their website. What a firm or a potential employer will put on their website says a lot about what they care about and what they want to message to the marketplace or to potential new hires such as yourself. And so you should be conversant in that. You should be, ready and prepared to talk about what's important to them. You can also look for things that they mentioned to take clues about their culture, their values, and any potential perks or differentiators that they think make the firm special, and that'll help inform any sort of commentary or questions that you might ask a little bit later. The other thing that you might want to consider in researching a firm is are there any other contacts that you've got, right? And this bridges into the next one. Do you have any contacts with the interviewers in common? If you're not on LinkedIn, you should get on LinkedIn. Most of your interviewers are going to be on LinkedIn or, in some way have an internet presence, right? So figure out if there's anything that you've got in common. If you have a similar volunteer interest, if you have an alma mater in common, if you have, history at another employer, great. Always good to have something in common with the person that you're talking about. If you aren't told in advance who you'll be interviewing with, feel free to reach out to your contact in recruiting and ask so that you can do that research and be prepared, because the interviewers are going to be provided with your resume and a brief on who you are. So it's only fair that you get the same sort of treatment and condition. When you're doing some research and when you're applying for a position, make sure that you have a good understanding of what the position actually entails. So title of position, type of work that you're supposed to be doing. If it's with a public accounting firm, the common questions are going to be, why are you interested in our service line? Why are you interested in our firm? What do you know about the job? And you can, differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack by being prepared to answer those questions. And the best way to do that is to do some research on your own in advance. If you have folks who are with you in school, you could brainstorm with them. If you have people that who are a year or so ahead of you through other campus organizations, they're great resources as well to mine for ideas about what the interview process or what the individual position that you're applying for is like. I'll pause there. Any questions so far? Or Veronica, I think you've joined us. Are you anything to add there?
No, Chip, I think that's great. And I apologize. You guys were running ahead of schedule and my meeting was running a little into this. So I apologize for joining late. It's kind of funny moving into the next slide of making a good impression, right? First of all, I'll just introduce myself, Veronica Caputo. I am a new partner in our state and local tax group here in Atlanta. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys about, during the interview, making that good impression. Obviously, being on time, always a great thing. Again, always fun when we can make fun of ourselves on items like this. But first of all, being on time. Before we even go into what's on this slide, being on time, making sure if you have a change in schedule, you're letting people know well in advance. As we all are working in a virtual world now, it's very difficult to reschedule things at the last minute. So making that good impression, being on time, dressing for success. I know it almost feels weird to say this, but we generally suggest that unless otherwise specified, unless the firm tells you, we at Grant Thornton, generally, Chip and I are both very business casual today. We tend to go to that business casual on a daily meeting. For an interview, we always say, business professional is best. When I'm on campus, and I know Chip is the same way, when we were on campus, we were always in suits, even though our firm is business casual. Business professional is really definitely important still day to day. I have a number of clients that still wear suits, so it's important that we can put on that very professional image. Public accounting is still considered a very professional industry, so having that in your back pocket is really great. And if you have any questions about what business professional is, we recommend that you reach out to the Career Center for any advice on what this means. When it comes to the next section, I will say, I find this very important. When you're doing a virtual interview, having a non-distracting background is important. I'll be the first to say that at the beginning of the pandemic, I kept believing this was going to be just a few month process, and my background behind me, which wasn't what it is now, was very distracting. It had a lot of clutter, a lot of books, a lot of my children's art. And as I determined that this was going to continue going, I set up much more of a traditional professional background. And before I did that, I started blurring my background. I know for a lot of the students online, these virtual interviews you're often doing from your dorm rooms. Most of the softwares have an ability to do either a virtual background, which I know some people can find distracting because you cut in and out, and you can tell I talk with my hands. So if I do a virtual background, it tends to get a little odd. So either doing a virtual background or just blurring your background so that the background isn't disruptive. Another great idea is reminding your friends and roommates who might be in the area, if you're doing an interview, that you're doing one so that they're not walking around behind you. The second bullet point here, lighting is very important. A lot of times there's not great lighting. It's hard to Read people's expressions, which is very important in interviews and having a dialogue of making sure everybody's actually understanding and interpreting the questions, and that they are able to see my chip and my expressions as well, to ensure if they have questions that they are comfortable asking them. You should always test out your internet in advance and have a backup plan. Most of our interviews, we love doing them virtually face-to-face like this, through Zoom, through Teams, through other apps where we can be on camera. But generally there always is a backup phone line on there that you should have ready to go. Always make sure, I know these will sound really odd, but I've seen this, always make sure your laptop is charged if you're not plugged in, or your phone has full battery if you're going to use that as your backup, so that you can make sure that you can finish the interview even if something happens. You may want to test some of the connections with a friend in advance, and definitely test video platforms. What I've seen, and I think anybody from different firms could comment, there are multiple platforms people are using, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Teams, whether we're talking, communicating through Blue Jeans or some of the other platforms. Make sure you test the platform in advance and know how to use it, as well as ensuring that if you need to download it in advance, you have it out there. If it's not a platform you've used in advance, definitely open up the link, make sure it's going to download to your computer, and make sure you're going to be able to use it. If you have any problems with that, that gives you the opportunity to reach out to the recruiter, the interviewer in advance, and let them know, hey, I'm having trouble with the technology. Can we connect over the phone? I've actually had candidates where that's happened, and because we both use iPhones, we've ended up just using FaceTime, where we can have a conversation that way rather than just a telephone call. So Chip, did you have anything to add here before we go to the next slide?
I think you're on mute, Chip.
That's another great point. My laptop has a hardware mute, a button on the laptop for mute, and then there's also the Zoom mute. So that will happen. And we've been doing this for 18 months now, and people are still having issues with that. So it's something that folks will make allowances for. What I was saying was, those are all great points, Veronica. With respect to background and lighting, I mean, if you're in an apartment or in a house where you don't necessarily have a lot of ability to make significant changes to those aspects, even putting up a white sheet or something like that to give yourself a different background, or to take out background noise, can be super helpful. So just consider those points and make amendments where necessary, I guess is what I would say. We can move on to the next slide. So during the interview, this is a time where you want to get to know the firm as much as the firm wants to get to know you. So a great way to do that is to ask questions. I mean, that's kind of what the interview is, right? The interviewer is there to ask you a bunch of questions about yourself and your education and your interest in the firm and position. So you also want to make sure that you're asking, similar questions or relevant questions to the interviewer. Before the interview, you should be thinking about what's most important to you about, an employer or the position. Is it, some connection that you have on personal values? Is it that they're going to help you reach a career goal? Is it making sure that you have the work-life fit that you're looking for? And your questions should be tailored to those aspects of the firm or of the job. Great questions that I've been asked are, if you had to start your career over again, would you do it in the same way that you've done it? What do you, how do you make sure that you have the appropriate separation or make the appropriate decisions about work-life fit? What should I expect from an advancement opportunity standpoint in the first couple of years of my career? And make sure that when you're asking questions during an interview, make sure it's not something that is, you can find in the top of the first page of the Google results or on the firm's website. Again, folks want to know that you have been interested and doing the research on the position and on the firm, so that all of that kind of groundwork and understanding is taken care of. I mean, I'd be happy to talk to you about GT all day, but I'd rather we get on to something that's really important to you or really important to me in the interview process.
Yeah, Chip, I think that's a great comment. Some of the best questions I've had, kind of similar to yours, are why are you currently at GT? Because I think that drives, we want to understand what's most important to you. And sometimes it's helpful for you to understand what's most important to us and how we've made kind of the last bullet, work-life balance, or personal values, fit into the culture that we have at GT. I do think making sure that the firm is a good fit for you is very important during the interview process as well.
The other thing I'll say about these tips and the rest of what we're going to talk about today is that these are also great for if you're at a career fair or at a networking function, right? Like all of these tips are relevant and important for those aspects of networking as well. And since we're talking about opening the door and making sure that you get into the door, that was historically the first impression that you would make on somebody from a firm. And if you get to the point where you are doing an in-person interview or an in-person function, make sure that you're thinking about these aspects of that as well. So there's always time to do your homework. Abigail, you want to advance to the next slide? And then Veronica, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so I'll take this one, and then I think we're going to open it up for questions if anyone has them. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and start dropping them in the chat box as we wrap up here. So it's very important after the interview to follow up. This isn't something that's gone by the wayside as we continue advancing and continue doing things more remote, in a remote setting. But definitely make sure you're pausing. And one thing I would say is taking some notes during your interview so that as you follow up with your interviewers and the recruiters, you remember some of the salient points and things that were really pertinent and important to you during the interview. So definitely reach out to your interviewers and just give them a thank you for the time. If there was anything from the conversation that really provided value to you about the firm that you were interviewing with, or something you really enjoyed talking about, make sure you're referencing that. You want to make sure that not only during your interview you're making an impact, but afterwards you're following up and reminding them of some of that conversation you had that was really salient to the interview. We do suggest doing this within 24 hours of the interview. We all know memories tend to fade quickly, as well as if you don't do it within 24 hours, the idea of doing that follow-up tends to fade as well. So you may forget as well. Definitely also reach out to the recruiter, reiterate your interest in the firm. Hopefully the interview went well and you haven't decided that a firm is not the firm for you. So reiterate your interest and ask them what the timeline is. I always love it when candidates ask me during the interview, okay, what's the next step? When should I hear back from the firm? After that, what happens? Assume, as we say, and Chip will laugh as I say this, when we go through a proposal, we always say, assume you've won, right? So assume you've done well and you're going to get an offer. Ask them what the next steps are. Hey, when should I hear back from you? Will that be, assuming I've done well, will that be a written offer? Will that be a verbal offer? Will there be an additional timeline where I have to do an additional interview? So that you know exactly what the timeline is, because many of you will be interviewing with multiple firms, multiple businesses, corporations, right? And you want to understand what the timeline from each one is, should you have competing timelines between the two. Also, often, I know this year we are not looking right now like we'll be hosting in-office interviews or tours. But any other connections you've made in the firm, if you had an associate, a senior that you met at one of the virtual campus recruitings or career fairs, make sure you're reaching out to them as well, so that you can thank them for introducing them to the firm, shepherding you through the interview process, and again, express your interest. Because one thing I will say is, post interviews, we generally have a group debrief and have discussions. So it's always good to make sure you're following up and expressing your interest in the firm. And Chip, I saw you come off mute and go back on. So I was wondering if you had anything to add there.
No, I don't have anything significantly to amend, what you've said, but just to reiterate that, if I see, a follow-up from a candidate, shortly after the interview, that lets me know that they are really interested in the position, and interested in working with GT. And that can be a differentiator when we think about, all right, if we have, a handful of spots to offer, who do they go to? Because I want to work with somebody who is interested in working at our firm as a priority, rather than somebody who takes the position as a last resort. I think that both can produce quality results, but when we think about how we bring people into the culture, folks who are interested in being a part of the culture are first priority.
Agreed. And it looks like we do. I think Abigail, that's our last slide, right? So should we go ahead and go over to the chat? I see, first I'll say thank you for congratulating me on making partner, Winifred. I really appreciate it. Chip, I love this next question, so I'll let you go first. The question is, before making partner and senior manager, what were your career paths and how long were you in your previous roles?
Sure. So my entire professional career has been spent in public accounting at a couple of different firms. And in audit, the traditional career path is 2 years at associate, 2 to 3 years at senior associate, and then 2 to 3 years at manager, and then 3 or 4 years at senior manager before you make partner. Those are kind of the rough timelines, but individual circumstances can accelerate or delay any of those timelines. Just real quick, like while I was at BDO, I made senior associate in 2 years. I got promoted to supervisor in the year that I was with RSM, manager the first year I was with GT, and I was a manager for 4 years before getting promoted to senior manager. And this is my, I think, 4th year going as a senior manager. The reason I stay in public is I like working with new talent all the time. So I appreciate the recruiting process and the opportunity to mentor people. And I like getting to change industries and focus every couple of years. I've worked on everything from country music to cryptocurrency.
We might have to talk about the country music sometime, Chip. I didn't know that one.
Happy to do so.
So I have a little bit different of a background. I did start in public accounting in 1999 during my internship. So I've been doing this a little longer. I spent 7 years in Big 4, Big 5. Yes, I was around and started at Anderson. And then I actually spent 7 years in industry. We were just looking for something different at that point in life. I just went to industry for 7 years, and then I came back. To Chip's point, I came back because I missed working with talent and people that were constantly looking to grow and develop. So I joined Grant Thornton 7 years ago as a senior manager. 3 years ago, I was promoted to managing director, which is for my team in state and local tax, often a normal step to go from senior manager to managing director. And then this year I was promoted to partner after 3 years at senior manager. Next question. What's the most impressive question you have received during the interview? How did that make that student stand out for you?
I feel like during the years in doing interviews, I've heard it all and probably heard it all at least twice. But again, I think that those questions that really do stand out are from folks who have done the research about the firm or have a firm understanding of what we do, and then make it personal to them. How do I bring my desire to serve my community into the position? What does the firm do to make that important to them? Or I have this other cause or interest. How do I make that work with my professional responsibilities? So that sort of development of personal interest in the position and a prioritization of your own values and your own priorities. Really helps me know that a candidate is prepared for the position.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Chip. I think knowing what's of value to you and tying that to the firm's culture. Chip and I both are navigators in our culture journey for the firm. So knowing what's very important to you and how you can bring that into the firm's culture and tie the two together, I think is very important. I'm looking through quickly, confident body language. I would say, posture is still very important on a virtual interview. Definitely having that calm background that's not distractive, but posture, smiling, eye contact, while it seems odd, right? We're not actually looking at each other, but maintaining that eye contact to me is very important. We all take notes, we all look down time to time, and that's understood. We would have that in a live setting, but just I would say it's the exact same as it was in a live setting when it comes to confident body language is the same in a virtual setting. Chip, the next question, what's more important, character or credentials?
I think, especially in a profession that requires our clients and internal stakeholders to have, trust in their advisors, they're equally important, right? So, when we look at a resume, it's not a matter of, oh, this person has, 10 different extracurricular activities that they're interested in and a 4.0 and, 2 previous internships, and that is an ideal candidate. If that individual does not communicate and convey and then demonstrate once they're on the job, that they can be trusted with the responsibility and, in many cases, sensitive information that they're being provided, that's not someone who has a long history or a long runway in the profession. So I think that they're equally important.
Yeah, and I'll provide the other side of that, Chip, to you is, your credentials are very important. You won't get the interview without the minimum credentials of here's my resume, here are my grades, here are the classes I've taken. But making sure that your character, or here I'll also say your personality, is going to fit with the team that you're working with is very important. And that's why we always say an interview is a two-way street. Not only do you want to like the firm, you want to like and trust the people that you meet while you're interviewing so that you're going to be comfortable with them, opening up to them, right? Some days we have super long days. And it's important that as we say during the interview that you tell us what's important to you. It's also important during your first year, you let us know what's important to you. So that if you volunteer once a week at a children's shelter or something like that. We have some people that are very involved in fostering, that you're willing to tell your team that so that you can make your schedule around that. And a lot of that goes to character and personality matches and making sure that you're comfortable with the team you'll be working with. Mary Ruth, we definitely hire people that haven't had internships or previous accounting experience. We definitely take a look at everybody when we're interviewing. We don't just say, oh, great, you've had 2 internships before. When we have open spots, we're taking a look at all of the resumes that come in. What made me choose SALT specifically, state and local tax? That's what I did my internship in, Arthur Andersen. I met some people, I liked them. As I said, it goes back to about liking and trusting the people you work with. Just for any of you that are interested in tax at GT, we do not put people directly into any specific tax line. We now have our talent experience program so that you get a chance to meet people and try different projects. We had found that sometimes when you automatically put people in state and local after 2 years, if they don't like it, rather than raising their hand and say they want to try something else, it's easier for them to accept a job elsewhere. So in tax, we try to give people an opportunity to see very different things. I'm actually going to skip over the question about the transition from Andersen because that was so long ago. You guys probably all got to read it as a case study. That was when I was in Philly, I should say. I just moved from Philadelphia down to Atlanta 4 years ago, and it's been a great transition with GT Philadelphia down to GT Atlanta because we do have a consistent culture across our firm, and we're all doing the same culture studies every month.
Veronica,
I'll-
I think to give a little, not necessarily more recent perspective, but just a little bit of a view into the what is it like to transition firms conversation. I think that it's difficult to go from doing a job with the same title, right? Like staff auditor, tax senior associate, SALT manager, et cetera. And be given an entirely different set of tools, right? So you can imagine being, a carpenter or whatever, and you've got, your saws and your chisels and whatnot, and saying, okay, you're a tradesman, go be an auto mechanic, and it's a completely different set of tools, right? But those are both still, blue collar trades. So thinking about going from one firm to another is a lot about learning an entirely new set of faces from an office standpoint, but it's also about learning a different set of tools, since each of the firms uses their own proprietary software, or may use the same software in different Capacities. Marielle, are we okay on time? Do we have time for a few more questions?
No, we need to kind of wrap it up because we got to go into the next presentation. Is there a way
Okay, great.
to contact Chip, you, Veronica, Abigail, in case they have additional questions? Is that okay? Can they connect with you on LinkedIn in any kind of way?
Yeah.
They can reach
Yeah,
out.
please do reach out on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to get in touch without all of you getting into our personal email inboxes. But we do look forward to seeing you guys through the recruiting process, and hope we can speak to you individually about some positions in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Veronica, Chip, and Abigail, for just really giving us successful interview tips that we can use for the recruiting season. Now I'm going to transition over to Matthew Foster from Fraser and Dieter, and he's going to talk to us about professionalism, virtual etiquette, I can't talk today, and professional elevator pitch. It's all yours, Mary. I see your, I saw you. Yeah, go ahead. It's all yours.
We're going to kind of tag team this presentation, Matt and I are. So I can go ahead and share my screen. Well, I guess we can do introductions first so you can actually see our faces. I'm Mary Askew. I'm a senior university recruiter here at Fraser and Dieter. I've been here for almost 2 years now, and I work out of our Midtown office here in Atlanta. And then Matthew, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, it's nice to see everybody virtually this morning. So my name is Matthew Foster. I'm a tax partner at Fraser and Dieter. I've been with the firm now for, 13 years, and came straight out of Georgia State. So I have sat in everybody's seats that y'all are sitting in, except for not virtually. Mine, I definitely was in the class years and years ago. But yeah, I've been with the firm for 13 years and happy to be here and talk to you all about some of this stuff.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will go ahead and get started.
So we're supposed to be talking about professionalism, virtual etiquette, your elevator pitch. I mean, all those good, trigger words that everybody is talking about and what you'll hear about as you go through your career. So the first area of professionalism that we want to discuss with you is your behavior and your attitude. And I assume that everybody on this is, looking for internships and that type of thing. And Fraser and Dieter is just like every other accounting firm. And I'm sure every other professional that's on here from other firms can vouch that they look for these types of things in their interns as well. So, I mean, when you're in the firms and you're interning, you want to show respect to others and practice basic manners. Show commitment in your work and pride in your work. And those are big things that I look for in interns that I'm working with, is somebody that really takes pride in their work and really wants to, is proud of what they're doing. And being honest, that is a big thing that I think a lot of people feel like if they make a mistake, they want to try to come up with an excuse or try to find a way around it. The best thing that I've learned in my career is when you make a mistake, be upfront, be honest about it, and get in front of it and get it behind you as quick as possible. So, I mean, those are, I think, basic attributes to behavior and attitude. A massive area that in this profession you have to be very cognizant of are your ethics. Our clients depend on us to meet their deadlines and trust that we have their best interests at the top of our mind. So that involves safeguarding their information. I mean, we get to see on the tax side, at least, see a lot of very personal information for our clients. So our clients want to trust us, and we want our clients to trust us as well, to keep their information safe, to not let it out. And I mean, in the day and age of ransomware and all these IT attacks and whatnot, I mean, most firms are being very cognizant of how our information is protected. And that includes your coworkers and your teams and other employees of your clients. You want to make sure that you're just, I guess, the golden rule, you know, just treat other people that you're working with how you want to be treated. And especially in today's day and age, you really don't know what people are going through outside of work. And so you really need to be cognizant of, there's probably a lot of stuff going on. Case in point, I'm sitting at home because my child is sick today, and she's at my desk right now asking me for something. And I'm trying to get through this right now. So everybody has stuff going on that you may not know about. So conscientiousness, I hope I pronounced that correct. When you're interning in an office, and I do expect a lot of firms and everybody to go back to in-office and hopefully within the next 12 months. So as you're looking for internship opportunities, be prepared that you may be going into office. It's not going to be remote. And if you're on the audit side, on the tax side, not so much, but the audit side, you will be spending time at client sites. So you want to, you know, be organized and keep your area clean and neat, and not just, you know, like a dorm room. And at a client's site, yeah, it is always polite to not just go into their break room and help yourself to whatever they have in there. So presentation. This is a big thing for me. Be on time, be present and presentable, and follow your company's dress code, which is dress codes in general are getting much more lax as the years go on. But I still am of the mindset of, you know, dress at least in a way that you're not going to be embarrassed if you have to get in front of a client, or, you know, the managing partner comes to your office or something along those lines. So just don't come like a slob. And the be on time thing is very important. I've had interns that, you know, don't show up to meetings on time, don't show up to Zoom calls on time. And trust me, it is very much watched and talked about behind the scenes. So speaking of Zoom, I'm going to turn it over to Mary because she probably knows more about Zoom than I do.
We've had a lot of Zoom the past year and a half. So just a few tips and tricks with Zoom, which I think some of these y'all are all aware of, but especially like, for instance, for like our audit team that aren't going to clients as much right now because of the pandemic. We do a lot of this with new hire training, making sure everyone's kind of aware of all Zoom tips and tricks as well. Check your camera angle and view before joining the meeting. That's kind of huge. If you have a lot of stuff going on behind you, if you're working from home, that can be kind of distracting. And this goes as well for interviews or even career fairs or things like that, if you're using Handshake for those. Dress appropriately. Usually people say from the waist up, especially when you're on camera. So just keeping that in the back of your mind, making sure you look professional, at least from the waist up. Mute yourself if you're not actively participating. I saw myself doing that because there's people walking around the office while Matthew was talking. So just making sure that you don't have a lot of distraction behind you. Being mindful of the background and background noise. I know I already kind of covered that. And then using in-person body language. It's been kind of an interesting year and a half, just because people are just looking at your face. But I think that that's something that's pretty huge, is that no one is loving being on Zoom. We can all agree with that. So if you can make it seem as natural and as making as much of an in-person interaction as you can, that is the best it can be, and is definitely helpful, especially when you're talking to employers and recruiters and things like that. It kind of shows your personality a little bit too. Okay, email tips. Clearly this happens outside of the pandemic as well. Think positively, try to avoid negative sounding emails. I know a lot of times the county, you kind of try to keep it short and sweet. So just try to be as positive as possible though with your communications with people. We know, like, during busy season, people are not sleeping as much. It's long days in the office, but just trying to stay as positive as possible is awesome, especially when you're an intern and still, kind of proving yourself for a position outside of your internship. Use a concise subject line. If you can get most of your point across in the subject line, it's easier for people to read and want to read and make your emails a priority. So putting whatever the key information is on there that you think they need to know, just putting that in the subject line. Proofread your emails. This is huge. And most of the time, all the Outlook or whatever Exchange or email services people have that proofread spell check option. So that's always huge. You never know who your email is going to get forwarded to. So that's always something I keep in the back of my mind. If I have a question and someone isn't able to answer it, they're probably going to forward it off to someone else. So you want to make sure that you sound as professional as possible and that you really do have good written communication. Check your attachments before sending. This happens quite a bit now. I know everyone sometimes on their background has multiple things saved on there. So just double checking before you hit send on that email that you're sending the right attachment, or that you even have the attachment on your email. That happens a lot. They're like, please see attached, and then there's not one. So then you have to send a follow-up email and it's not all together. So just checking that attachment before you send it. I know at Fraser and Dieter, we have a 24-hour reply policy. So if you get an email, you're supposed to follow up within 24 hours. I think people really do appreciate if they email you something and you don't have all the information right then, just let them know that you're checking in with someone else. Don't just leave them hanging so that they're not really sure what's going on. So if it's been 12 hours since you sent the last email and you still don't have an answer, just maybe following up and being like, hi, I checked in with the manager. I haven't heard back yet, but I will email you back as soon as possible.
I'll concur on that. A just simple, hey, I got your email, I'm looking into it. That is all you need sometimes to just appease a lot of stress on people.
Awesome. And then double check the recipient's name and email. You want to make sure you're sending it to the right people. Know your audience. Oh, go ahead, Matthew, you have something to add?
Yeah, the double check the recipient's name and email address, that is on this list, I would say the most crucial point, especially when we're going back to our ethics and, people are trusting us with their information. I mean, there is some sensitive information that we send via email, either through attachments or whatnot. And I mean, in all the years and 15 years in public accounting, I've been doing this. One time I had let Outlook auto populate an email address and realized I had sent an email to the wrong Steve. You don't want to have to go to them. Thankfully, it was a guy a client that I trusted implicitly. He was like, I've deleted it, no harm, no foul, but yeah, that is something that you want to make very sure of.
Know your audience. Your language can be very different from, emailing with like a fellow intern versus emailing with a partner. So just know your audience and who you're chatting with or client. Use clear wording. We've kind of already gone over that, and be mindful when you reply all, especially with company-wide emails. We had this happen to an intern a few years ago. So you want to just make sure that you're double checking, like we said earlier, who the recipient's name and email is, because you don't want to be sending something out company-wide that you do not want sent company-wide. Okay, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is huge right now, especially with the virtual world we're living in. So make sure, I think that that's something that's super important. Make sure that you have that updated as you go through your classes. If you're updating your resume or have internships, make sure you're going on your LinkedIn and updating on there as well. 3 things recruiters look at. 6 seconds to impress is what we say. This is something that our experienced hire recruiter talks about a lot. Your picture. Make sure you have a picture on your LinkedIn. If it just is the icon, it is hard for people to identify you if this is an active account or not. And they like to put a face to the name. So be professional, approachable, and most importantly, be yourself. You don't have to have a white backdrop or, be in a suit, especially if you're a female now. If you're a male, maybe wear your suit, but, make sure that you look polished. But, if you are outside, say, for instance, and it's a gorgeous day and there's a beautiful backdrop, if you want to use that picture as your background, feel free to do that. That kind of shows, you like to be outside and something a little more personal about you. Headline. When recruiters search for you, they're using keywords. If the keywords are in the headline, your profile will get bumped in the recruiter search. And then think about the job you're looking for and the skills needed for that job. You might want to end up adding that to your headline. And then summary on your LinkedIn profile, keep it brief, but be sure to highlight those keywords. We are about to talk a little bit more about your elevator pitch, and that's a great place to go ahead and put that in your summary, just so people know a little bit more about you and they know what you're looking for and kind of what your goals are as well. All right.
Yeah, so the elevator pitch, I mean, it's one of those things that even as when I was in your position as a student or an intern or staff, it was something that, I don't know what to say. I don't know. It comes with time as you start working. And I mean, you will get into this rhythm when you're introduced to people and you start networking. What are the key points that you have to get across? Do you want to get across your name, who you are, what your title is, and then what you bring to the table? They call it an elevator pitch because it should be in the time that it takes you to ride an elevator. So 30 seconds, probably max. You should be able to get this across. For you, times to use it would be, during your career fair, professional networking, job interviews. It's you sit down with somebody that's interviewing you, tell me about yourself. Okay, here's everything. And then start elaborating at that point as they ask questions or you can see from body language that they want to know more about it. So like I said, it's starting with introducing yourself. So, I'll go through my typical elevator pitches. My name is Matthew Foster. I'm a tax partner with Fraser and Dieter. I've been doing tax and public accounting for about 15 years now. I specialize in middle market companies and have a specialization in manufacturing and distribution. It's just kind of just once you figure out what you need to say, it'll become like looking at the back of your hand. It'll just roll out and you'll be able to start picking up cues from people that you're talking to about what do they want to hear, what can I elaborate on, that type of thing. Common mistakes. Yeah, keep it brief, 30, 60 seconds. I like to stick more on the shorter side. Speak naturally, share your skills, have confidence in what you're saying. And the more you say it, the easier it's going to be. think that's it. You're muted, Mary.
All right, thank you so much. You'd think after a year and a half, I would remember to unmute myself. I just want to reiterate on here. I know I do a lot of phone screens and interviews for candidates. And when you say, tell me about yourself, if you just start going through your entire resume, you know, most of the times the recruiters have your resumes pulled up. So telling them a little bit about yourself too is sometimes helpful when you're a student. Maybe if you have any goals, like I really would love to be in Atlanta, things like that. Those are things that we're interested in hearing. Like we can see your resume, but like Matthew said, he had more of a summary of what he does, his specialties and things like that. I know as a student, sometimes you don't have as much on your resume. So if you need to add a couple more personal things on there, that's perfect. Okay. And then we had questions. I know we had a little shorter time. So if we need to just put in our LinkedIn and you can ask us questions later, that works. I know Tony's about to go next.
Thank you, Mary and Matthew. I don't see any questions in the chat, but please feel free to drop your contact info in case. So after y'all just ask for your LinkedIn so that they can connect with you. That'd be awesome. So I'm gonna toss it over to Tony Williams from New World Rogers CPA. And he's going to be talking about, so you want to be a CPA. So the floor is yours, Tony.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to join you for this boot camp today. The reason we are focusing on the CPA license is because at these recruiting events, the firms here and a lot of the other firms have that expectation of you getting your CPA license. It is still the gold standard within the public accounting industry. So I'm going to break down for you, what the requirements are for the exam, what the requirements are for the actual licensure, and how it's actually going to be evolving for some of you who may be graduating, in a couple of years. You're going to see a very different version of the exam than what it currently is. So let's first talk about why it's an exciting time to be a CPA. There are so many different reasons why individuals choose this pathway. The one that I've heard, yesterday is actually my 8-year anniversary with the company. The one that I've heard the most is the job security with becoming a CPA. If you think about what's happened in the past year and a half with the pandemic, when the Prometric testing centers reopened, they reopened for what they deemed to be essential professions. Obviously on that list, you found medical, nursing, dental, but then there were CPAs. Regardless of what is happening around us, CPAs are needed. Businesses need them to continue functioning and running. So they are, being a CPA is considered as an essential profession. And there's a lot of flexibility, not even just within public accounting. You have opportunities, within the private industry, within government, and even within academia. When someone sees those 3 letters behind your name, you really are seen as a trusted advisor and a business consultant from day one. And I think part of that is because, most people have a basic understanding of the rigorous process you need to go through in order to get that CPA license. So there is a sort of prestigiousness to having those 3 letters behind your name. You're definitely going to be working at the forefront with some of the latest technological advances in the business world. Technology is changing the role of a CPA. And in turn, it's changing the way in which they're testing you on the CPA exam. So as you'll see in just a moment, a lot of things are going to be evolving as the role of the CPA evolves. But for a lot of people, that's really exciting to dive into some of this new technology. And then there are great salary options with getting your CPA license. For some, money is the motivating factor. And this is just a snippet of, average salaries within tax and audit from Robert Half International Salary Guide, based on, your title or your position within the firm and then the percentile that you fall into. But as you can see, there are definitely great salary options to getting your CPA license. So it's going to be a little bit of an investment up front in terms of time and money, but the long-term benefits for your professional career are definitely going to be worth it. So let's focus on how to actually become a CPA. What do you need to do in order to get that license? So the requirements are going to vary depending on which state you plan on getting licensed in, because we're speaking with Georgia State students, we're going to focus on Georgia requirements. So in Georgia, to get from point A to point CPA, it's actually the 3 E's. You need to fulfill your educational requirement, you need to pass that exam, and then you need your work experience. You do not need the ethics exam in the state of Georgia. So once you fulfill those 3 requirements, you are then eligible to submit your paperwork for your actual CPA license. So let's break that down a little bit. For the exam, you're going to have a very different set of requirements than what you'll need for your actual license. So for Georgia, in order to be eligible to sit for the exam, you will need your bachelor's degree from an accredited university recognized from the state board. So that's a minimum of 120 semester hours. And then within those 120 semester hours, 20 of those need to be in your upper division accounting courses. So no principles or introductory courses are going to count towards that 20, but they will count towards that 120. Very simple for Georgia. That is all you need to be eligible for your CPA exam. Usually if you are an accounting major, you will be set. You will have that 120, you will have those 20 semester hours. And by the time you graduate, you are more than likely going to be CPA exam eligible. As you go into your recruiting event, you also want to keep in mind that you should start thinking about what your game plan is. These recruiters like to hear that you plan on taking the CPA exam and you plan on getting your license. So start thinking about what that timeline is going to look like for you. And at least be aware of when you're going to be CPA exam eligible and when you actually plan on being license eligible when you have the 150, which we'll get to in just a second. For those of you that may be graduating this semester, next, you are going to have to go through an application process. So very briefly, this is what it's looking like. You guys are going to go through NASBA CPA Central. You're going to have to submit your official transcripts from Georgia State and any other college or university that you attended. There is an application fee and there is an exam fee for each of the 4 sections. And once NASBA receives everything that they need from you and you are approved to sit for the exam, they're going to give you something called a notice to schedule. That notice to schedule is essentially what's going to allow you to go to the Prometric testing centers and schedule and sit for your exam. One thing to note is that that notice to schedule is only good for 6 months. So when you initially apply for the exam, you really only want to apply what you are realistically going to be able to take within a 6-month time frame. So it's important to come up with a study plan prior to the application process. Because if you don't sit for any of the exams you applied for, you forfeit that $225 fee. You have to pay a reapplication fee, and then you have to pay that $225 fee again. Expense is one of the biggest challenges to the CPA exam, and we want to make sure that you understand all the caveats of applying so you don't fall into that hole of coming out of pocket more than you need to. Another thing to note is that notice to schedule must match your 2 forms of identification exactly. If there are any errors, contact NASBA so they can reissue you a new one. Another thing that happened last year that's going to help candidates get through this process more efficiently is the ICPA moved to continuous testing. What that means is you no longer have blackout periods and you are no longer tied to quarterly testing windows. You are now able to sit for the exam at any point that you'd like to, as long as there's availability at the Prometric Testing Center of your choice. You have 18 months to complete all 4 sections of the exam. I know 18 months sounds like a long time, but if you are studying for this exam while you're in a MAC program or while you are starting at a firm, you'll know that it's definitely a big balancing act to find the time to study for the exam and get through it within that time frame. So continuous testing is designed to help you get through the study process and this exam process more efficiently. Now let's talk about what to expect on the exam. You do have 3 requirements for your license, but the exam process tends to be the most daunting. It's going to be the most time consuming. And for some, it is the most challenging. So we always like to break down those barriers by letting you know exactly what you're going to expect. So for the current version of the exam and the version leading or going into December 2023, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see a 4-part exam. your financial accounting and reporting, your auditing and attestation, regulation, and business environment and concepts. A good amount of what you're learning in your upper division or graduate level accounting courses is going to be found on the exam. So unlike some of your other college courses where you may not see that information after passing that class, that is not the case with your accounting education, your accounting curriculum. So if you take a government not-for-profit course or an intermediate course, you're going to find that within financial. Info systems, you are going to find within BEC. And as Mary said, written communication is going to be such a useful skill to you in your profession. And so even within BEC, you're going to be tested on written communication skills. So you want to keep in mind that the sooner you sit for the exam when you're eligible, the greater your chances of passing, because there is that correlation between your university curriculum and the exam. There is going to be information on the exam that is not covered at the university level, and that's where review courses come into play. We are going to really prep you guys to ensure that we are giving you everything you need to be successful on the CPA exam. One of the biggest questions we get is, what order should I take the exam? There is no right or wrong answer here. You really have the liberty to take the exam in any order that you'd like to. Based on our expertise, and I've sat on panels with all of the other review providers, and we are pretty much all in agreement that this would be our suggested exam order in a year where there aren't any major content changes. So starting with financial, it's the most intensive, it requires the most amount of study time, it won't eat into that 18-month window, and then moving into audit or regulation, and then finishing out with BEC. Again, this is just a suggestion. If you know that you are really strong in tax and you just want to start, the exam process off on a strong note, start with regulation and then move into the remainder. The only thing I will say is try not to say financial for last. Financial kind of lays the foundation for the other three sections of the exam. And financial does require the most amount of study time. So if you're cutting it close to that 18-month window, you don't want, not being able to finish studying for financial and passing to be the reason why you, lose sections of the exam and have to retest. So we really try to shoot for getting this done within an 18-month time frame or less, so that you can really just focus on the rest of your requirements for the license. This is just a brief overview of what you can expect in terms of the current study or exam structure and time strategy. You have 5 testlets. You're going to see multiple choice questions, task-based simulation questions, which are more like multi-answer questions. You're going to see fewer of those, but they require a lot more problem solving, a lot more analysis and evaluation. So you're going to spend a lot more time on them. The times that we have here are just approximate suggested times to spend within the testlet so that you're answering all of the questions within the 4 hours. It's not a negatively scored exam. So you want to make sure that you're answering all of the questions to increase your chances of getting the passing score of 75 or better. Granted, you could spend as little or as much time as you need to in these testlets, but the one thing to remember is that once you close out of a testlet, you cannot go back. So make sure that you answer all the questions within your testlet before moving on to the next one. You do have the option for a 15-minute break at the halfway point. Highly recommend you take it. They'll stop the clock. It's really a great way to kind of gather yourself and mentally prepare for the next 2 hours of the exam. You can take additional breaks, but the clock will be running, so you don't want to do that unless you're sure that you have given yourself plenty of time to finish the remainder of your questions. So as I mentioned, the CPA exam will be changing. Some of the changes have already been implemented, the most recent being July of this year, so just last month. And the reason that it's changing is because what accountants are expected to do on the job is changing. So you really have to leverage complex technologies to do your jobs effectively. So new technologies such as big data, cloud computing, and AI have greatly impacted the accounting field, especially in these 3 areas. So new business processes, digital mindset and data analytics, and then SOC reports. So as I said, as a result of these changes, the exam must also change to properly test on these skills, because you have to remember that the exam is really a reflection of the skills that you need to possess within the first 2 years of working at a firm. And so as that role of the CPA is changing, the exam needs to reflect what you'll be expected to know as well. For those of you that are graduating in 2023 or later, you are probably going to be up against, not probably, you definitely will be up against something that we call the CPA exam evolution. It is a new version of the exam, a new way to get candidates licensed. A lot of it is still being fleshed out right now, but we have some of the basic details in our hands. And the 4 parts that I just talked about will no longer be. You are going to be tested on what they consider to be the core of a CPA. So accounting, audit, and taxation, and that technology aspect is going to be throughout all of the sections. So those 3 sections will be your core. And from there, that 4th section is going to be a choice of disciplines. So it could be business analysis and reporting, information systems and controls, or tax compliance and planning. What you choose to be your discipline for the exam doesn't necessarily need to be what you're practicing in your profession. It's still going to be 1 license. Again, there's a lot that they're working out, but I just want to set up the expectation that for those of you that are graduating again, 2023 or later, you're probably going to, those in 2023, probably start the process with the current version and transition into the new one. Or you're definitely going to be jumping into this new version of the exam. More information will come on that as the AICPA and NASBA really work through those details. Again, passing the exam is just one of the things you'll need to get your license. For the remainder of your educational requirements, you do need 150 semester hours, 30 of those being in your upper division accounting courses, 24 in business related subjects. And then you need that 1 year of work experience. So 2,000 hours of full-time work experience. And they state that it cannot be completed any more than 1 year immediately preceding the date of your application. So you want to keep that in mind as well. Once you complete those 3 requirements, you can submit your paperwork for your license. You never have to look at the CPA exam again. At that point, you really just focus on getting your CPE. And maintaining that active license. So really, as I said, the time to invest in yourself is now. Start thinking about what your CPA plan is going to be, when you're going to be eligible. It's a great way to set yourself apart. You know, you're going into this recruiting event with your peers who have, are taking the same classes, you have similar GPAs, you're part of the same student organizations. So you want to find ways to make yourself unique and stand out. And part of that is starting to talk about your professional development and what your plans are within your career, especially in regards to your CPA. For those of you that might be graduate students and may already be in your career or looking for a change, it's a great way to start your career if you're eligible to start this process now. Essentially, you just don't want to put your future on hold by procrastinating and not sitting for this exam when you can. A lot of firms have CPA review options. So you can enroll in your course and you can either bill the firm directly if your review course has a partnership with them, or some firms have reimbursement policies where you choose the course that you want, you pay out of pocket, and they are going to pay you back for what you pay. Some offer bonuses as well. There's also opportunity, I know some firms that we work with will say, we're going to give you the day off for your exam and it's not going to count against your PTO, things like that. So when you get an offer letter at a firm, and I know a lot of people learn about even these options when they're an intern at firms, really be clear on what the CPA exam policies are. They want you to get this done. That's why they are there. That's why they're helping you and providing you with some support and resources to get through that process. That is it for me. I try to get through that and try to stick to 12:30 as close as I can. This is my contact information. You are more than welcome to connect with me if you have any additional questions. I do also do one-on-one complimentary advising sessions to talk about your individual CPA exam game plan. So I welcome you to connect with me if you're interested in that, and also connect with me on LinkedIn so we can continue to network in the future. And I'm seeing a couple of questions, but it looks like some people have been answering them already.
Yeah, I think there was a question that you can answer really quickly. It says, so for the new version of the exam for 2024, there are 3 subjects to be tested. Are there 3 sections to be tested on when 4 subjects was previously tested? I think Tia asked that question.
Yes, so it's still going to be 4 sections. Those 4 sections are just going to be different. So as I said, the core is going to be the 3 sections of accounting, audit, and tax with technology sprinkled throughout. And then the 4th section is going to be that choice of discipline. So one of those 3 sections, you get to choose what that 4th section is going to be. So still 4 sections, it's just going to look a lot different than the version of the exam that we're seeing now.
Awesome. Tony, thank you so much for taking the time out and walking that through for us. All right, y'all, we are almost there. We're gonna actually do breakout rooms. I'm actually working on putting them actively right now. So if you give me a couple of seconds to do that. So we have PYA, and then we have UWorld, Roger, and CPA Review, which is where Tony is. I'm actually, okay. And then we have PwC, so Grace is gonna come back. We have Frazier and Dieter. We have Deloitte. Is Whitney here? Yep, there she is. I see you. And last but certainly not least, Carr, Riggs, and Ingram. All right, so I'm going to open the rooms now. We're going to take about, let's say till 12:55, because so I think we're in good time. So 12:55 in the rooms, you can talk more about what each employer does, but then also ask questions if you want to practice your elevator pitch, if you want to get more advice about your resume, so whatever it may be, please feel free to do that. If you want to rotate or go for 15 minutes, go to another 15 minutes, just come back to the main room and then I'll switch you guys in and out. Okay. So rooms are open. Right now, you should be able to pick where you would like to go. And employers, each room has your name on it. So you should be able to just automatically join the room. There we go. See, y'all are leaving me.
I'm sorry, did you say how to get to the break rooms again?
Sure. It should be off to the bottom of your screen, like the bottom right. You should see some option that says join breakout rooms. If not, is that Jen? Do you know where you want to go?
I'm not sure which breakout rooms. Is Tony in one of the rooms?
Options either.
Yeah, the options are PYA, UWorld, Roger, CPA Review, PwC, Frazier and Dieter, Deloitte, Carr, Riggs, and Ingram. So those are your options there.
Okay, can you send me to UWorld?
2 seconds. I have to find it.
This is Judy, and I don't see the option either. Can you put me with the Deloitte?
Oh, 1 second, Judy. Got it. Sorry, y'all. It's a little bit more complicated.
Hey, my name is Sarah Hoyos, and I'm experiencing the same problem. Can you put me please with Deloitte?
All right, just sent you. All right, who's next? I'm kind of gonna go in order here. Somebody's already unmuted. Y'all can just talk. If you don't see the option, just let me know, and I will try to get you.
Hello, hi, this is Pankaj. Can you please add me into PwC, please?
Definitely want this experience for you as you grow your career with us to be personal and individualized. And so there's lots of opportunities out there for you.
So. Andrew Brown, are you still in here? Where would you like to go? Some people may have walked away, possibly.